So this is basically a title that I would, I don't know, recommend and we can talk about, because I don't know what your expectations are mainly. I don't know how much interested you are in startups and issues concerning that. So I would suggest that I maybe start out by telling you a little bit about myself. Then you tell me a little bit about yourself and your expectations, as we do it in startups and economy, because we always address the needs of the clients, and today you are the clients. And then we try to deal with your questions or your expectations, and try to bring it in the context of the subject above. Very briefly, as I said, my name is Robert Tchaikovsky. I'm originally of Polish origin. Moved to Germany in '81 and with the state of war, and stayed there mostly for the next 40 years. I'm a lawyer by profession. Started out in the media business. Never worked as a lawyer. Worked for a German media tycoon for quite some time. That was my first business life. And then when the company went bankrupt and we weren't able to buy out the parts of the company that we worked for, I switched into advisory, and from advisory I came into finance, and then I worked for 12 years in finance. And after those 12 years, I was really fed up with the business. I thought that it's not going forward. A lot of legacy, a lot of old thinking, and I decided to start up my own business and created a small, let's say, investment fund. And we concentrate with a few partners. We concentrate on businesses that we call high involvement businesses, which means that apart from a very rational client proposition and value proposition, we also address emotional issues, and the products that we design, or the businesses that we design, combine those two elements. So the clients on one side want to have a normal service, a product, for example, pet food. Pet food is a good example, because on one side you buy some meat, you buy some snacks, or you buy some supplements. But on the other side, the clients are very insecure about how their pets will like it, whether they will like it. And since the pets cannot tell them that they like it or that it tastes well, they spend a lot of time going through internet, meeting other people, accessing blogs and other things, and spend a lot of time and a lot of money on filling that security gap that they have. And since the industry is basically providing very intransparent products and trying to maximize their margins, they're not very satisfied and always in very, very afraid that they will do something wrong. So for example, I mean, if you go and eat something, you probably never analyze the different elements of the food that you eat. But if you have a cat or if you have a dog, everything is written in the bag, and you try to do it in a chemical way, try to really analyze, is the cat getting enough vitamin A, D, E, and K? And so it's crazy, but that's how it works. So these are basically the businesses that we address, and we've been addressing over the last few years. Most of the businesses that we started really from scratch, as startups, really from the bottom. We started analyzing a macro analysis of the market. We decided, the market is attractive, is interesting, and then we said, what is missing in the market? And then from that we went in a detailed way, and then designed the product according to the needs of the clients that we found out, and then launched the product. So that's basically what I do every day. Learning new sectors, learning new businesses. It's far more interesting, far more entertaining than what I did for 12 years in a bank. And then maybe I'll tell you about it later. Also, the financial sector is something that I'm interested in, and we spend a lot of time in, because we realized during the many years in that area that the financial sector, insurance companies, banks, not really providing the services that people need. They basically only try to accumulate revenues to keep their structure going. But the client-centric approach that we feel is necessary is very seldom executed. So this is as a start, maybe just to give you a brief idea what I'm doing. Yeah, could you introduce yourself a little bit so I get an idea of who you are and what you do and might you be an interest in economic issues, in startups, and what we should talk about. You can take your...
Yeah, thank you. My name is Sergey. I'm from Kryvyi Rih. I am deputy of district parliament, and also I'm working in such kind of IT company. We have a website with selling lightning, and also now we started with some techniques and B2B services. And also we have some kind of startups also for this B2B service. I think it's first in Ukraine, such kind of this. So it's very interesting to know what is happening in this area. Yeah, it's B2B service for our clients, for example, designers and other, where we are showing them how many goods we have in stocks. It's like a website with selling some techniques and lightning, but with a lot of some additional services for designers and for architects and other. Everything, lamps, candelabras, yeah.
My name is Makola. I'm working as a lawyer at an NGO, and also we have a startups with my friends. But now we won one of the hackathons, and now we're facing the problem how to structure our startup and how to try to find ways of monetization of the startups and to create a business model of it.
My name is Elena. I work for an NGO, and we help different vulnerable groups of society by medicines, by working out policy and communicating with stakeholders and like donors and whatever. So, as for startups, frankly speaking, I have read one book. It's called From Zero to One. I don't know exactly. This was my first acquaintance with startups, but it was far ago.
Hi, my name is Anya. I'm from Kharkiv.
Just one question. What would interest you in the issue of startups? What would you like to get out of this meeting today or the discussion today?
No, I will definitely take part in it.
No, yeah, but what would be the issue? What would be what questions would you have? Is there something that would interest you in particular?
Maybe examples of startups. Of course, everybody knows about Apple and so on. And there are, of course, one.
Okay. Business model. Okay.
So I'm a PhD student. I'm working on the topic on smart cities. Also, I'm working in an IT company as a project manager. We are mostly doing websites for different businesses, but that's not something I'm enjoying pretty much. Also, in my free time, I'm working with kids, building some life skills lessons, so volunteering work. In terms of startups, I guess would be interested in how those startups can survive, because there is a statistics that not everyone can survive, and basically most of them die. So maybe there are some tips for success. And also I'd be interested if you can touch this topic, social innovation startups. So the startups that do not only aim to make profit, but also would like to make some impact, social and ecological. This is something I have passion for. Yeah, thanks.
Hi, my name is Sergey. I'm working in market at social research company, Ipsos, and I am very interested in all things that are connected to topic of fourth industrial revolution, and in particular, according to the title of this presentation and topic, I'm interested in why Europe doesn't have such big companies like China or USA, and how it will be represented on the international area in 21st century without these companies, except Spotify, but some boring companies like SAP, and how you, like a person from the startup environment, should deal with government, old-fashioned government regulations to provide the services for bigger quantity of people with less, not regulation, but less barriers from the government services.
Hello, my name is Stanislav. I'm working in the reform support team of Ministry of Economic Development and Trade. I pretty much a consultant, but actually I work in close cooperation with Department of Regulatory Policy and Development of Businesses. Currently we are doing a lot of projects. One of the is doing business. We are trying to raise Ukraine in the ranking. We hope that in this year we have plus 10 points in general ranking. Moreover, my main things that I'm doing is regulatory policy. My formal position is deregulation analyst. So, but actually right now we are trying more to build the ecosystem to work with business associations. So our primary goal is to build public-private dialogue with professional associations, because in Ukraine they're kind of weak and they cannot address properly the problems that they have, and thus the policy is lagging behind because nobody knows what actually they need in regulatory environment to be done. The department currently is doing a lot of projects dealing with small and middle enterprises. It's pretty much the main focus. We're also dealing with startups. We have, we hopefully will make a project aimed to make a country more friendly to startups. Main things that we are right now dealing with is the problem that Ukrainian startups can grow fast in Ukraine due to the low taxes pretty much, but they don't have, even they can like get finance, but after they get it, the people who are interested in them, they often say you need to change the registration and go to Lithuania, for example, just to get more like resources, finance, and more easy like regulatory stuff. So this is one thing we are doing. Another, like there is a whole number of support programs that the department is trying to build up, like private credit guarantee, public-private guarantee. I mean, for enterprises to get like proper financation. The state saying that it will cover some part of the and so on. So yeah, I'm generally interested, of course, in topic of startups, but also I would like to talk about economic miracle because yeah, generally I'm interested in economic miracle. I mean, I guess it's of course the discussion that is going on in Europe right now, and everybody wants to understand what is going on actually and how to come up with some plan to rise inflation, for example, like and what is going on in case of like next recession that is coming on, and so on and so on.
Hi, I'm Victoria. I work as trend and political analyst for OSCE Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine. Thus, I deal mainly with the conflict in eastern Ukraine. And honestly, economics does not fascinate me as much as security. However, I do some charity projects from time to time, and I have recently become interested in social business, social startups, which is the way of kind of raising money for charity or doing things like business that does fulfill some social things, right? Meet some social aims. So I would be interested to hear a little bit about that if you have anything to share. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Yaroslav. I work as a political consultant. And the main issue for me is an investment business. and how to understand trends that will be popular for next week, for next year in investment, especially if you don't have a lot of money, and we not say about oil and something like that. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Igor. I'm from Odessa. I'm a human rights activist, human rights defender. I'm interested in human rights, especially in police service, in courts. And I think that it is very important to find some unique startup ways to improve our third sector of NGOs, and it can help to be more effective in Ukraine. It's very important. And also I think that Ukrainian society should find some unique way to make some economic miracle, because if we wouldn't find this way, Ukraine will be not so developed country as Poland, maybe, as Europe countries.
Hi, my name is Pavlo and I'm from Odessa. I'm head of local NGO. We're working on the southern part of Ukraine. Mostly we are doing different projects in media sphere. So we did some applications for voters, for example, and for citizens and so on. So I'm interested in startups in media sphere. So in startups in media sphere. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
My name is Anastasia Boychuk. I'm advisor to the Minister of Health. I work as a project manager in her office, and I'm I'm Master of Finance, and now I'm working mostly with public finance. And due to our healthcare reforms that is happening right now in Ukraine, I can observe a lot of so-called medical startups or something, because we are deregulating a lot of processes in healthcare sphere at the same time while implementing international standards and evidence-based medicine in Ukraine. So from the startup and economic point of view, we are making healthcare economy here in Ukraine more efficient, and at the same time we're creating opportunities for private healthcare providers to work with I would say not public money, but for you to understand before, only state-owned or community-owned hospitals could receive money from the state budget. And right now we changed the philosophy of the model of financing, and any hospital, whether it's state-owned or community-owned or has private owners, can receive payments from government if patients go to that hospital and receives a service. So we're just creating standards for services and paying to any healthcare providers for that services based on the fact of that's online. That's online process, and yeah, we have created the e-health system where all healthcare providers could be registered and sign an agreement for service provision with a national healthcare service. So we're making our health economic system more healthy in this way. Yeah. More efficient, and that's an interesting job.
My name is Orysia. I work as book reviewer, and for this edition, it's like half academic edition, a journal, a Ukrainian one, which I work in communications as well, and I work as a journalist, and it's other small projects. and I investigate political economy of digital platforms and social media. So I have a little bit of academic interest in the topic you proposed, because when you said about this economic miracle and the middle of the last century, I remember the book of Michel Foucault. It was a chapter about neoliberalism and the kind of American neoliberalism, this model, and German neoliberalism. I'm a bit critical as well about this economic miracle, because of course it had good like influence on society, but it also created some like closed system of economic relations. And it also, and in relation to this recent development and startups, I think they can have really good influence on society, what was told, because it's like bottom-up initiative. But I'm also afraid of this different influence, which can like lead to further economic inequality in the sense, because further economic inequality, if we speak especially about startups, like we have this tendency of B2B, and I'm not sure if it's like client-oriented model which really like helps society to become better. So I have some so I think they can have good tendencies as well, but it's also some effects which we should like count, because if it's like B2B, it may create this impact of middle class becoming like lower, because they don't have like good finance models, and I think it also have side effects. So I have more of academic interest in it, but it would be nice to hear about it. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Christine. I'm from Russia, but I live in Ukraine. I'm social science researcher, and also I'm interested in combating propaganda and fake. And as I know, there is a trend to combat these issues. And even it was also a startup from Ukraine who won a prize, and it also was directed to decreasing the level of fakes. But the idea was quite just simple. You need to plug this application to your web browser, and while browsing, it just follows the news you are reading, and it compares with the list of the news that have been already checked and already known as faked. I installed it, but it has a lot of problems because it just named there is a lot of mistakes. For example, I'm just reading news about, I don't know, weather, and it says that, okay, it's not the weather, it's about that Boeing that was hit. So it's a lot of mistakes in this application. So I'm really interested in the startups that could beat fake news and propaganda.
Hello, my name is Sina. I work as a parliamentary assistant to the MP Alena Shkrum, and also I am a co-founder of the NGO Institute for Development of Local Initiatives. And if we talk about startups, they are usually more widely spread in urban territories, and I would like to know about the instruments of encouraging, of launching of startups in rural territories. Thank you. In rural territories. In villages, yes.
My name is Anastasia. I work for an NGO working mainly dealing with local governance. And I have two questions or two things I'd be interested to hear more from you. One is your stake, or how is your startup working in a more, or what's your position on a more ethical or sustainable way? Like, do you have a policy, for example, of the footprint you produce, and how do you ensure that the labor you use is not affecting other less developed countries, for example, whether you have any stand on it? And the other one, yeah, exactly. And whether it's really implemented, whether how far it goes. Is it only inside your organization, or also related to all the suppliers, and how do you make sure it works? And the other one is more related to open knowledge concept and open economy. So how much do you cooperate with other startups and how much do you share of the information you have and make it sort of open and accessible? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's pretty interesting round and very different profiles. Some of you already have some experience and are working in that field. Others have touched upon it or have general interest in it. So I would try to, the very different, let's say, approaches and the different ideas and different interests, I try to gather that maybe in the next 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then maybe we can have a discussion on that, or you can then refer to that and we can see what has not been answered yet. And from my point of view, and I mentioned that in the beginning, we are really at the brink of a new era. I mean, it's been written a lot about it, the industrialization 4.0 and all the other issues, and the chess, how do you call it, the chessboard, that we are currently moving from one side of the chessboard to the other, and the expectation is, and in books written about it, that this processes, the digitalization process in the next few years will accelerate in a speed that we have not seen before, because everybody's always saying, well, yeah, this has been taking place so far, but still, I mean, we notice digitalization, but the effects have not been so tremendous yet. And this is argued by scientists that we've still been do you know the theory of this chessboard? No? They say there was a king back in old Persian times, and he had a advisor, and he needed an advice. And then when he got that advice, the king asked the advisor, well, so what would you like to have in return for that? And he said, well, I would like to have for every field on the chessboard, I would like to have 2 corns of rice. And on every next one, it will be doubled. Will you do that? And so the king said, oh, really? Is that all that you want? He gave him, I mean, he made, how do you call that? He agreed on that. And then he realized that he's never being able to pay off the due to him because with the doubling of it, in the beginning it looks really slow and it looks really weak. But then when you get to the second side of the board, it accelerates and it's really not so basically that's what the expectation is, but that's one side of the thing. That's the technological side. I think what is most important in our times that a lot of transformation processes, economic transformation processes, are taking place. When you look at the business side, when you look at the business companies, not only in younger economies like here in Ukraine, where you struggle maybe with developments, but especially in those established economies like Germany, France, and America, most of the old companies, and this is especially true in Germany, the German Mittelstand, the people that were responsible for this economic miracle from 49 on, were very much engineer-driven, were very much product-driven. And those companies need to change because the client expectation, the client requirements have changed, and the transformation that is necessary to take place is not only on the product side. Yes, the products will be digitalized. This is quite easy to cope with, but then the processes within the companies need to be digitalized as well. And the third element is the digitalization of sales and communication with clients. And most of the companies that are so focused and were so focused on products in the past have big difficulties understanding that the needs of the clients are changing, and not the product that you construct with 100 or 110% or 120% is the necessary issue, but understanding that maybe the client needs only a product that is 80% what you would be able to do, but is cheaper, smaller, or better to service than the one. So one example, there is a big company in Germany who was constructing washing machines. And they were making washing machines, and they were very proud to produce washing machines that can stand 20 years or 25 years and still work and never break. So this was a big success in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s. Nowadays, when you look at countries like China or India or other countries, people don't want to keep the machine for 15 or 20 years. First of all, because the energy cost is quite an issue, and the efficiency of energy is changing very rapidly. So something that has been built 15 or 20 years ago doesn't meet any the standards anymore. And those people move from one apartment to the other every 3 years because they earn more money. There's a certain wealth improvement in their lives, and they would never take the old machine with them. They want to buy the newest one that is digitalized and out. So that means the client needs only a machine that is holding up for 3 years or 5 years, because then there is the economic issue of it. And the question is that really the right way? But how can you persuade them? Or look at TVs. When you buy a TV and every 2 years there is a new TV coming up, and the cost of the TV that once been the sign of wealth and costed a lot now costs only 100 euros. It is very difficult to persuade them to buy a TV and hold it for many years. So what I'm trying to say is the transformation is taking on one side place in terms of the businesses and the companies, but it's also, and I think that's something that you refer to, is also taking place on the side of expectations of clients. So many other issues that in the past maybe have not been that important, like issues like sustainability, transparency, a thing that we many years ago have not been noticing, like for example, personal attitude. All the businesses that we look at and that we invest are always driven by a certain attitude towards things. Like we want quality, we want transparency, we want sustainability, we want that people, because our clients, or we believe that our clients want to know where the product is coming from, under what work circumstances, under what work, how do you say that, work realities it has been produced. They're not willing to accept that the product has been produced in Bangladesh under really bad working conditions, that has been transported for many days. Other issues are becoming relevant. Responsiveness is becoming relevant, and so in the past, and we try to teach our clients that some things are a certain attitude as well. So because some of the clients that we spot already have a certain attitude, others need to be educated, and education is becoming also one of the relevant issues. So this transformation is taking place in many different ways. Demographics is one very important issue that one needs to take into account, and everybody who's starting today a business needs to take those issues into account. You mentioned the trend as a thing. I mean, of course, we observe many things. I mean, there are certain momentums developing. There are certain expectations. One never knows how those trends will really influence the need of the clients, and whether then that a business model can be derived from it, or what is the right way of deriving a business model from it. But they need to be taken into account, and then you need to try to find out what kind of a leverage this trend can have on your business. One of the other issues that has been mentioned is on one side economic startups, on the other side the social impact startups and approaches. My belief is that the way, I mean, when you think about a business model, whether this is economic or this is social, the approach is basically always the same. You try to look from, in the first place, you try to look at the market and try to find out what market do I want to attract, and what is the problem of the market. The problem is always the starting point of any venture and of anything. You have to really be able to identify and isolate a single problem. The better you are able to isolate a single problem, the better your answer to that problem is, because then you can really focus on one thing. If you see a vast area of different problems, it will be very difficult to find a very sharp offer to it, And because then you will try to with one product or with one solution, you will try to manage different problems, different fields, and this is always quite difficult. So try to find, no matter what things you think about, whether it's the health sector, whether it's environmental, whether it's refugees, whether it's simply economic things, try to really focus on one special product that is really easy to isolate and find out if this product, which is always very important, is a nice to have or is it a must have? Is there a group of people that really will do anything to get your solution and you really solve a problem that is essential to them, that is fundamental to them. So this is one issue. The market is, from my point of view, always one of the most important determinants of any venture, any endeavor that we do, any adventure that we approach. The second, of course, is the more proprietary and the more, let's say, USP-driven the solution that you find is. Let's say the bigger the threshold for others to approach it. And I don't mean only really in the economic sense of the word. I also think that in any other area, also social areas, you really need to have a proposition that differs you from the other proposition. If it's comparable to others, I mean, the comparability to other propositions is from my point of view always a good way of analyzing whether really there is a problem. Because if other people have spotted the same problem, there is something right about it. You know, then you're on the right way. If you go to Silicon Valley, for example, and you speak with the biggest fund managers there, they love to be approached in the same week with 3 exactly identical business propositions and concepts. If somebody, if 3 different people from different areas come up to them and say, I have a unique business solution, and next day somebody else comes up and says, I have exactly the same one, and then in the third one, then they know there is something about it. There is some reason, it's the right timing probably to do that. They probably don't know who will have the right solution for it. So what they often do is they invest in all 3 of them and then hope that one of them is successful. Which brings me to the other issue that has been raised. I think you have asked for that. Why are we in Europe not so successful as the Americans, for example, are? What is the reason that it seems that we fail, or that, I don't know, Americans are better in starting up a unicorn and relevant businesses? I think this has to do, first of all, with mentality. When you go to Silicon Valley and we speak with people, first of all, they are very open to tell you about their projects. In Germany, for example, or in many countries that I've spotted, if somebody has a good idea, he doesn't talk about it. He tries to keep it for himself, and then he develop at his home, and then come up with a ready solution. Speaking about your idea helps you. I mean, there's always a danger that somebody will steal it, but if it's so easy to steal, it's also maybe not the best solution ever. So speaking about it is a good way of monitoring and finding out whether that idea really, makes sense and other people will buy it. It helps you refine the idea, which is also very important. You get different perspectives and different mindsets in your idea, and it also helps making those ideas better. The second reason is probably often also regulation. We are far more concern-driven, like data protection reasons, other things. People in Europe tend to be more, in general, more afraid and more cautious than Americans. Americans they think it's great, they start doing it, and they love to fail. So the old saying that you get when you read those books about startups, if you fail faster, because then you can, become you're more effective. The failing after 2 years, it really hurts. You have spent so much, of your energy, of your emotions, and put everything into it. and then the idea doesn't work. So it's better to fail after 1 week and then, you know, get a new idea or get a new input and then stand up and it doesn't cost so much usually, you know. If you fail after 1 week, the cost you incurred and the investment that you have provided is not so big. So I think these are the issues. And when you go to US, when you go to Silicon Valley and we speak with people, and I met people that have done investments and sold off their companies for 1 billion and 2 billion euros, so they really made it, you know. They speak about their failures, and they're not afraid to speak about it. You know, they don't tell you, you know, how excellent this idea was and the company was. They usually tell you how many obstacles there were on the way and how unsecure they were, and that in the end it worked out. But the most important message is to tell you what went wrong and what has been not, you know, what didn't function. And this is also something that, at least for where I come from, is very seldom. People, you know, they failed, but they always tell you, well, you know, this was the reason for it. It wasn't actually my fault. Well, actually, it wasn't really a failure. We had a very good business, but then it doesn't make sense, you know. It's like sincerity in that regard, being able to deal with your mistakes. I think it's the biggest learning that you can take out from investing. And what else do you need? I mean, of course, you need endurance, you need passion, ruthlessness to a certain extent. I always found out that most of the successful business people, no matter whether these are startups or established businesses, they have some kind of a phobia that tomorrow everything will go wrong, like an existential phobia, and that keeps them going, and that keeps them, you know, really trying to get the best out of it. They're afraid that danger is coming from all sides, and this fear of failing is something that is a very strong force from my point of view. So maybe summing up and giving you another opportunity to ask a few questions. And I'm sure you have all read the business model canvas. You know what a pitch deck looks like, and what the structure of a pitch deck is. I don't need to tell you, you know, the obvious things. But no matter what kind of business you start, and as I said, if it's a caritative approach, if it's a social approach, use the same structures and give yourself a certain structure. Whether this is business model canvas, try to think what is the value proposition, what is the secret sauce, what are the USPs, what are the KPIs in that business, and this is really applicable to any business models, because this, let's say, this very stupid summing up everything on a page and basically writing it down is a process of reflection that makes it, I mean, that allows you to better analyze the strength and weaknesses, you know, a SWOT analysis of your of what you're aiming to do, and where you want to invest a lot of time, a lot of free time, a lot of business or work time in your next year. So yeah, this may be a general overview on it. As far as German or European economy is concerned, somebody has touched upon that as well. It's really hard to say where we heading. I mean, you know, the interest rates are low. The central banks are pouring a lot of money into the system. I think that from many reasons, apart from digitalization reasons, there have never been a better time to start your own business. Digitalization is allowing you with very little, let's say comparably, very little input to start your own operations, to fulfill your ideas. And if you're ready to sacrifice a lot of things, becoming an entrepreneur and a startup business person, not as an employee but as your own boss, I think it's a terrific time. to do it. So, is there anything I haven't answered, I haven't addressed? Maybe we'll start a discussion right now, after my monologue.
You said now more and more people like buy new washing machines or like new cars. Before, you know, my grandfather had a car for 20 years. But then that also, like, then we produce all the waste. And I was wondering how could, I don't know, is there a way to change this culture or to make, for example, now I think there is one phone company, this Fairphone, where you can replace the pieces, because I think often there are two problems, that there are the new, more efficient models, but another one is that we just can't replace, or we can't, it's more expensive to repair than to buy a new thing. And I think now it's still okay, but in the long run, I mean, let's just create more and more trash because we create more and more products. But how could we change this? And especially you in a startup area.
Well, I think this is a very important issue. I mean, all issues of recycling, ecological issues, I think I mentioned that earlier, it's a different mindset, a different attitude, personal attitude. These are very important issues. I think there are two sides to it. First of all, there are, in this field, there are often a lot of convictions. And the question is, are the convictions right or not? There are different systems that need different approaches. So, for example, in Germany, just recently, there was this issue of plastic bags in supermarkets. Plastic bags in supermarkets, and we are facing this with our startups as well. Plastic bags are not the worst solution. Actually, from the ecological point of view, in a system that functions as a recycling system, this is probably the best solution. Compared to that, a paper bag needs to be used probably 78 times to get the same ecological footprint as a plastic bag in a functioning recycling environment. And if you do it with a cotton bag, it needs to be used 270 times. It makes sense. So when you look at the trousers I'm wearing, 27,000 liters are necessary to produce one pair of those pants. So and I see a lot of them here, right? So there is always a question: do we know the answer, and what environment is necessary? In China, in India, in Greece, plastic bags are probably the worst solution, because people throw them out on the street or throw them out on the beach, and they land in water because not a sufficient recycling system is existing. And it's a very it's a very long and winding road to get that. You need to convince people, you need to raise awareness of it, and you need to be able to translate it in the right way. We, for example, at the moment, when we set up this pet food company, we've been analyzing with our suppliers of fulfillers and DHL as being our how do you call it, parcel company. We've been analyzing what are the best solutions for packaging the whole product. And the terrible thing is, every producer of plastic bags and plastic cups is prepared to answer you the question of the sustainability and ecological footprint. No paper producer is able to do it. They simply don't provide you that information. They don't know. Because they don't care, because most of the people, when they see a paper bag, they always think, oh, this is good, this is ecological. But the chemical, the water, the trees, that needs to be cut and then processed to do that, are far more environment unfriendly than this plastic bag. So what I'm trying to say is, first of all, one really needs to analyze where am I doing this business? Is the convictions that I have, do they really stand the test? And then try to find out, we always need to have first movers, but we know also that a lot of first movers are the first failures. because they are too early in the market. People are not ready. The general opinion within the customers is not yet developed to really, to really pay for that service that somebody who is really, even genial and very conscious and very caring about the future has had. So from an economic point of view, this can be a very risky thing. That's why there are state funds, there are people that donate money or invest money, crowdfunding, crowd investing, other things where you're really able to gather and where you're not promised to have an economic success, but to change somehow the environment, to change the world, to change the mindset of the people. And this, I think, so it's always the same approach to the business model, but if you're driven by impact and you say, I want to change something, you will do your analysis, you will still do or should do the same analysis as you do within any economic concept. And if you come to the conclusion that the market is not big enough to provide for an economic approach, you may still say, but still, I believe that it is really important to do that. I know we will not be earning money with it, and I will tell my investors that we will probably not be earning money with it for the next few years, but then I have to find the right investors. So it's management of expectations also toward your investors. You really need to go, shoulder by shoulder and have the same ideas and same expectations. You want to say something?
Yeah, basically, I agree with your idea and comments that we should do analysis what is really most sustainable. And I want to give one more example. It was like an NGO initiative in Ukraine which tried to cope with batteries, like to recycle them. They started like NGO, and of course they of course like encourage people to gap it when they work on reusing them and many solutions, and they work like for 5 years, and they come to that actually it's producers who have to be responsible for these batteries to become the recyclable. And I think it's really like a solution for this problem we have. So the producer of these bags, plastic bags or paper bags or anything which is not like sustainable if it's not recyclable, is really the one who should be responsible. And I'm wondering if, so it of course depends on state regulations, but of course corporations don't want to do it because it's like many corporations don't want to do it because it costs a lot of money. And do you think that it's possible that all like things which are produced can be so their recycling can be paid by the very producer, and can all producers agree to such model?
But that's a very interesting remark. Especially in those things, as you mentioned, regulation is very important, and the regulation is done by the state. So it's the politician that you vote for. They need to provide the framework that the country or the people that vote for them think is really relevant and is really necessary. And then the companies need to apply those rules and those regulations, those laws, and they will provide for the right products to suit those regulations. So your impact or your influence is twofold. On one side, you have your influence as a consumer. You just you can keep your purses closed and not buy the products that you find are polluting the environment, are bad for health, whatever. It's if you don't find that the products reflect your standards, you should not consume them. That's the first thing. The second thing, the influence factor, is you can change regulations by voting for politicians that represent your position. And the third way is you get your own, you start by your own and provide another solution, a solution that is exactly reflecting your convictions, and you need to hope that there is more than you who wants to provide or has that need of the product. I think that's we don't have too many other options and leverages that we can use.
Maybe a little counter argument, because I agree with that regulations are important, but if we talk about this like big businesses or even small businesses, they are often global and like international and work like beyond borders, and some national regulations may not always work. So maybe we need some kind of also international regulations or institutions like that to cover.
That's the idea of the EU, basically, to really to have a harmonization of law, whether this is in tax areas, whether this is in trade areas, and that was the original idea, to have a really strong entity that can deal with it. Unfortunately, as we have seen in the past, with the not harmonized tax systems, some countries like Luxembourg, Ireland, were using and allowing some tax arbitrage for large companies. But I think and I believe in the long run this will change. Also, global companies find more and more difficulties. I don't know whether you've been reading about certain scandals involving Nestle as a dairy producer. People become in certain areas more conscious, and then they take the consequences out of it. A silly example, but we've seen a lot of dinosaurs, prevailing for a very long time, and then they have been overtaken. And there is nowadays, when you look at some of the companies, the speed of growth in some companies compared to what's been possible 50 years, 100 years ago is incredible. You get companies that are 2-3 years on the market, and they get a market cap of a few billion. They float the stock exchanges, and then out of that they develop new products and new solutions. But it is also something which we have always to keep in mind from a point of view of established companies. It is also very often not so easy to analyze what are the trends and what will people need and what is technically feasible. When you look at the car industry, for example, they are in a very difficult situation because they still don't know, will it be the hybrid, will it be e-mobility, will it be different other sources of energy that will drive the autonomous or individual communication in the future and infrastructure, and so they have to play different elements, even though they have a lot of people employed and they have a lot of research and development departments in the companies. For them, it's very difficult, and there will be always chance for smaller people, new ideas to jump in and take the market share from them. Anything else? Have I exhausted you? Yeah.
We have talked about the culture, the special culture of American Silicon Valley in the sense of startups, and I was interested what other factors, influence the ecosystem. I think that the main problem of the country when it faces the dilemma how to give startup a room for growing is how to build whole system, right? So what elements do you need actually? The first thing that you think about is incubators, I guess they called so, yeah. And then you need something more. And if you can name the elements, that would be nice just to maybe to structure them in some order.
Yeah, very good point. I forgot about that. Yes, I think that a certain fear to fail is strangely enough also reflected on the side of financing. Interestingly enough, people especially in Germany, when you look at those, and I come back to the generation of 49, these people back then, they're making startups back then, and they took all the insecurity and all the many of them failed, but they were not afraid to fail. They were doing the business. They were jeopardizing the houses or other things, and they were really willing to put everything at stake to succeed. Today, those people or the descendants in the second or third generation, and there is always this saying, in the first generation builds it up, the second preserves it, and the third collapses or loses it. I'm not referring to this, but also some of the people that started out early are today they're really not willing to take the risk and support many startups. They want to see existing and prosperous businesses, then they're willing to invest, but to support new ideas, new capital, there's far too little of it. And many established venture capital firms in Germany that have, 3, 4 different funds, they always have the difficulty to finding enough investors to support new businesses. So there is some let's say, some mentality lack or mentality gap in comparison with the United States. I've been in touch or had contact with the Indian investors and people from different sides of the world. They always say, if you need the personal, the right people, the right talent, go to Far East, go to India, go to China, because that's where you get it the cheapest. If you want money, go to United States, because there you get it the fastest. And if you need to roll it out, because there's least competition, go to Europe. So this is their understanding of the world. So we are, from their point of view, considered a little bit like the market, where you can roll out and then make money, but not really, first of all, not find the talent, and secondly, not the money to do it. So if that's correct, I'm not sure whether this is totally the right analysis of it, but there might be some truth to it. I think that we need to basically try to alter that situation, to modify that situation, and as I said, a lot is changing. There is a question of attitude, and I have a lot of hope in the different swarm intelligence, crowd investment platforms. I see a lot of things changing. You've been certainly following the ICO market, the initial coin offering market. This has been a big bubble that exploded. But there are new things to come, like the security token offering. This is going to be the next wave. This will allow people to take out the middleman and create new clearance and trading platforms. This will, I'm sure, change the way that we invest in companies. So there are many positive signals that we spot, and I think that the next years will show much more activity in the startup segment and in the startup space, But the question is, my daughter, for example, she goes on this Friday for Freedom marches and participates in it. But on the other side, she loves to shop, and she goes to Pimki and to Primark, and she goes to H&M and other things, and really how do you call it? Buys product that is meant to be thrown away after one season. So these things don't go together, and there needs to be more sincerity, authenticity, and let's say consequence in the way we act. We cannot, if we want to save the world, if we want to save the environment, we cannot fly every weekend to distant places, and we need to adapt and be be really consequent about it. And so there is a big talk, for example, in the fashion segment, since I touched upon it. Fast fashion, big companies like Zara, Mango, and all the others, and then the slow fashion segment with all the second-hand producers. But the truth is, on the other side, those business models exist for years and years. In Germany, there is not a single platform, fashion trading platform, in the second-hand market, in the slow fashion market, that is profitable. Well, people just don't buy the goods. I mean, there are some technical issues regarding that. It just, if you have a platform with second-hand products, there is only one size for you in a certain color or in a certain brand. It's very difficult to find. If you have 50,000 products on the page, to find the right product could take you hours. So the question is it technically really well solved? And do you find the product within a few minutes? This is much more easy by Zara or H&M, because there you know that always get the right size and all the right things. So this is more convenient, of course. But it's not only the convenience issue, it's not only the technical issue, it's a mindset issue. And as long as we don't really, we don't follow on our mindsets or what we pretend or we declare to be our mindset and take up the consequence of it, things won't change.
Yes, and I would like to ask you a question about consumer conscious. For example, a conscious, consumer conscious when you're buying things consciously. For example, first part of the question. For example, I know that Germany produces a lot of good stuff, and this stuff is consumed by Germans itself. So they have good products for Germans. And for example, now in Ukraine there is a different small producers of clothing. For example, me personally, I'm voting for Ukrainian producers. I buy Ukrainian goods, not to supporting China's or Turkey, because I would like to support Ukrainians. So what is your opinion? Is it like a solution for when a lot of Ukrainians would buy Ukrainian products? For example, was it the case for Germany, if you know, for example? Was it in the past? Yes, possible.
I mean, I think it's really hard to say. I mean, there are, of course, this let's say trends of regional products and regional markets, and I think in general that's a very good idea. It saves on transportation, it saves on packaging, probably on many issues. But as I said before, what is really important is to get to the core of the problem. So, for example, in Germany or in cattle stock, for example, of course it's terrible if those cattle and all the others are kept in huge factories and are fed with terrible things. But the reason why they are doing it is because we consume too much meat, and that's a simple reason. So not only buying locally or regionally is the right solution. The question is, do I have the right, let's say, diet that I'm using? And when we look at, I spoke yesterday to somebody. When we look at let's say the ecological disaster happening in China or India or other countries. Of course, if we look at the regional point of view, then we say, okay, well, look, I mean, they are polluting the whole world now. But if then we look at the facts and we see that 80% of the products produced there are consumed by us, then that looks a little bit different then. And so there is no easy solution to it. If you keep on consuming the same things and you don't change the lifestyle, then probably you will support by buying locally, originally, you will support the Ukrainian producers, but they will probably need to, at the current stage, at this time and place, they will need to adapt the same methods that the German producers do. So, okay, maybe you save on the transportation there. These issues are not really, there are no simple solutions to those problems, and we love, we benefit in Europe. We benefit strongly from the rising demand in for example, in Far Eastern countries in meat and the growing amounts, because our producers have the best technologies, the most efficient machines, the most efficient production schemes, and these things are exported there. Our wealth is based on that, a certain amount. Anything else? Any other questions? A little bit over time. You probably want to go home, enjoy the sun. Yeah. Yeah. If there are any other questions, I'm still here. Yeah. You can. We don't need to discuss that in this round. But if you have other questions, please be happy. I'd be happy to answer. No? Thank you very much.